The trajectory of my life had taken an unexpected turn, leading me to a crossroads I never anticipated. My name is Rachel, and at 39, I found myself adrift in a sea of quiet desperation. My husband, Michael, a man consumed by his ambitions, existed in a world of endless work commitments, business trips, and late-night meetings. His constant companions were his phone, his laptop, and the relentless demands of his career. While I had always supported his drive, understanding the weight of responsibility he carried, a part of me felt increasingly neglected. With every business trip, every missed dinner, every late-night phone call, a void grew within me, a gnawing emptiness that whispered of loneliness and unfulfilled desires. Our son Lucas, now 20, had always been a free spirit, rejecting the structured path we had envisioned for him. 2 years into college, he'd made the bold decision to drop out, choosing to forge his own way instead of relying on the privileges his upbringing afforded him. Now, he worked at a local grocery store, his days filled with stocking shelves and ringing up customers, returning home each afternoon bearing the weariness of long shifts. That summer was particularly brutal. The relentless heat seemed to permeate everything, seeping through every crack and crevice, turning our home into a suffocating oven. One morning, like countless others, Michael left early, his briefcase in hand, his mind already preoccupied with the day's agenda. The sound of the front door closing echoed through the empty house, leaving behind an almost palpable silence. I sat in the living room, enveloped by the stillness, staring out the window at the sun-drenched yard. The harsh sunlight seemed to amplify the emptiness within me, casting long shadows that mirrored the darkness in my soul. As the morning wore on, the familiar sound of footsteps broke the silence. Lucas was home. The door creaked open, and there he stood, his t-shirt damp with perspiration, his forehead glistening with sweat. He looked exhausted, yet there was a certain vibrancy about him, a youthful energy that caught me off guard. His presence filled the doorway, and for a fleeting moment, the emptiness within me seemed to recede. A strange sensation washed over me, a mix of maternal affection and something more profound, something I couldn't quite define. The heat, the stillness, the loneliness of the past months. It all seemed to culminate in this moment, as I stood face to face with my son, a man now radiating a raw masculinity that both intrigued and unsettled me. "It's hot." "Mom," Lucas commented, placing a bag of chips on the old kitchen table. The faint smell of chlorine clung to him, reminiscent of his afternoon swim at the community pool. A soft smile spread across my lips as I watched him move across the room, his youthful energy filling the air. It was a touching moment, witnessing the subtle changes in his demeanor, his boyish charm giving way to a more mature one. My heart ached with a mixture of pride and longing, emotions I couldn't quite decipher. He grabbed a bottle of ice-cold water from the fridge and sat down on the old wooden chair, its familiar creaking a soothing sound in the otherwise silent house. The rhythmic hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional drip of condensation from his water bottle were the only sounds that punctuated the silence. We sat there for a while, basking in the stifling heat, each lost in his or her own thoughts. I began to drift away, however, into the wasteland, an undercurrent stirring beneath the surface of my motherhood. By mid-afternoon, the stifling heat had become unbearable, desperate for relief. I decided to take a cool shower. As I approached the bathroom, the sound of running water reached my ears. Moving a few steps closer, I noticed the door was slightly ajar, a shaft of light filtering into the dim hallway. My breath caught in my throat as I peered through the crack. Lucas stood under the shower, oblivious to my presence. Water ran down his lean body, his muscles flexing as he rubbed at his hair. Shame welled up in me, but my feet seemed rooted to the spot. A wave of heat, unrelated to the sweltering summer temperatures, surged through my veins. My heart pounded, a strange tension swirling. I felt paralyzed, caught between the urge to flee and the magnetic pull of the moment. Lucas continued to shower, oblivious to my presence. while I struggled with a whirlwind of emotions I had never experienced before. The nature of my thoughts both frightened and excited me, leaving me teetering on the edge of an abyss I had never known. I couldn't make sense of my thoughts in that moment. Confusion and embarrassment overwhelmed me, and I instinctively took a step back, eager to leave before being noticed. But as I moved, my foot accidentally knocked over the mop leaning against the wall. The loud crash startled me, the sudden noise echoing through the hallway like a thunderclap. Panic surged through me as my heart raced uncontrollably. I quickly turned and hurried back to the living room, hoping against hope that Lucas hadn't heard anything. Sinking into the chair, I tried to steady my breathing, but my chest heaved as if I had just escaped some terrible danger. The sound of the falling mop played over and over in my mind, each replay making me dread that Lucas might have noticed something unusual. My hands trembled, my body quivering with a mix of fear and adrenaline. But the house remained eerily quiet. No sound came from the bathroom, no footsteps, no calls of alarm. I told myself he must not have heard, but the turmoil inside me wouldn't subside. The image of him standing under the water, his body exposed, lingered in my mind with an unsettling clarity. I felt an overwhelming rush of shame and guilt, emotions that clawed at me with relentless force. Yet, alongside the guilt, something deeper stirred, something I had buried so far within myself that its sudden reappearance left me shaken. I rose from the chair and began pacing the living room, desperate to push the image out of my mind. But it was no use. The more I tried to suppress it, the more stubbornly it returned, haunting me and filling me with a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. The sound of water from the bathroom stopped, and a few minutes later, Lucas stepped out. He was wrapped in a towel, his damp hair tousled, and beads of water glistened as they trailed down his broad shoulders. I glanced at him briefly, then quickly turned away, deliberately avoiding his eyes. But my heart betrayed me, pounding furiously in my chest as though it would give me away. "Mom?" he said with a slight smile. "Did you hear something just now? I thought I heard a crash." I struggled to keep my voice steady, but I felt the tremor in my words. "Oh, I accidentally dropped the mop. It's nothing." I forced a quick smile and turned my face away, hoping he wouldn't notice the heat rising to my cheeks. Lucas shrugged nonchalantly. "All right," he said quietly, then walked to his room and closed the door behind him. The house returned to its oppressive silence, but my mind was far from at ease. The heat of the summer, combined with the lingering image of Lucas, made me feel trapped in a whirlwind of thoughts I couldn't control. I sat back down, burying my face in my hands as I tried in vain to dispel the emotions clawing at the edges of my consciousness. "What are you doing, Rachel?" I whispered to myself, my voice trembling with both guilt and confusion. But there was no answer, only the stifling quiet of the house and the relentless turmoil in my heart. Guilt gnawed at me, a relentless companion whispering accusations of impropriety. How could I, a wife and mother, harbor such forbidden desires? Shame and fear coiled within me, a venomous serpent threatening to poison my soul. I tried to banish these thoughts, to find solace in the familiar rhythm of my life, but the truth was undeniable. Something had irrevocably shifted that day in the doorway. My gaze lingered on Lucas, no longer with the pure affection of a mother, but with a newfound awareness of his burgeoning manhood. The sight of his strong arms, his broad shoulders, his tousled hair, ignited a fire within me, a forbidden yearning that both thrilled and terrified me. I was trapped in a vortex of emotions, a maelstrom of guilt, desire, and confusion, with no escape in sight. The following morning unfolded with its usual predictability. Michael, ever the workaholic, sat at the breakfast table, shoveling down his food while his eyes remained glued to his phone, scanning emails and messages. I moved about the kitchen, setting the table, maintaining a facade of normalcy despite the turmoil raging within. The familiar pang of sadness always arrived with his announcement of departure. "This one's going to be a long one," he declared, his tone brisk and impersonal, as if discussing a minor inconvenience rather than an extended absence. "I'll be gone the entire week." Though accustomed to his demanding schedule, his words still struck a discordant chord within me, leaving a hollow ache in my chest. "Don't worry," he added, flashing a quick, insincere smile as he grabbed his briefcase. "I'll make it up to you when I get back. We'll do something special as a family." I nodded silently, watching as he straightened his tie and strode out the door. The familiar sound of the closing door echoed through the house, amplifying the silence that now felt heavy with unspoken emotions and unfulfilled desires. Across the table, Lucas sat stirring his coffee, his eyes filled with a quiet sadness. "Mom," he began hesitantly, "I have a week off from the store. Maybe we could do something together. Just you and me. It's been a while since we've had any real quality time." A wave of guilt washed over me. I forced a smile, my heart aching for the connection he craved. "Your dad's away on business, Lucas. He'll be gone all week." I couldn't miss the flicker of disappointment that crossed his face, the subtle tightening of his lips as he suppressed his yearning for a genuine family moment. He simply nodded, then stood to clear the table, his silence speaking volumes. Watching him move about the kitchen, I was struck by the unspoken longing in his demeanor, the desire for a connection that transcended the roles of mother and son. After breakfast, the house fell silent once more. It was just the two of us, adrift in a sea of unspoken emotions. How long had it been since I truly connected with Lucas, listened to his dreams, his fears, his hopes for the future? Life had become a whirlwind of obligations and distractions, leaving little room for genuine intimacy. We found ourselves in the living room, a sanctuary from the oppressive heat. A gentle breeze wafted through the half-open window, carrying with it the scent of freshly cut grass and the promise of respite. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, painting the room in a warm, inviting glow. It was a moment of tranquility, an invitation to connect, yet the silence between us crackled with unspoken words, with a tension that was both exhilarating and terrifying. "Mom, I have a lot to tell you," Lucas said, his voice deeper, more confident than I remembered. "Whatever it is, just tell me. I'm listening," I replied with a smile, my eyes soft and encouraging as I looked at him. He began sharing stories from his everyday life, his work at the store, funny encounters with customers, and unexpected situations that made him laugh. I listened intently, feeling as though I'd rediscovered a piece of the bond we'd lost over the years. His eyes lit up as he recounted moments that had clearly brought him joy, and I couldn't help but feel a strange warmth in my heart. Time passed quickly, and for the first time in a long while, I was fully present in the moment, absorbed in his words. The distance that had quietly grown between us over the years seemed to dissolve. In a playful tone, I teased him. "You've grown up so much. Have you thought about having a girlfriend yet?" Lucas chuckled, his laughter ringing out with a carefree joy that filled the room. "Mom, I see plenty of girls in the neighborhood giving me looks when I walk by," he joked, his eyes sparkling mischievously. "But let's talk about that later. I want to focus on work for now." His tone was both teasing and sincere, and I couldn't help but laugh along with him. We continued to reminisce, recalling warm memories from when he was younger. We spoke of family picnics, his mischievous childhood antics, and the times both Victor and I had scolded him for his wild energy. These stories brought a lightness to the air, and soon the room was filled with laughter, as if the years had melted away, returning us to those happy moments. The sunlight streaming through the window grew stronger, illuminating the room with a soft, golden glow. The warmth wasn't just from the sun, but from the reconnection I felt with Lucas, a closeness that seemed to have been missing for so long. As the conversation faded, a comfortable silence fell over us. The clock struck noon, and we both sat in quiet reflection. Yet the atmosphere had shifted. There was a warmth, a newfound closeness that brought peace to the space between us. But then Lucas broke the silence, looking directly into my eyes with an expression that instantly unsettled me. "Mom," he said slowly, "did you watch me take a shower yesterday?" My heart pounded. The question struck me like lightning, and I felt my face flush a deep burning red. My mouth was dry and no words would come out. Lucas watched me intently, his gaze steady, a mix of curiosity and calm patience in his expression, as if he were waiting for me to answer. He didn't give me much time to think before he added, "Actually, I knew you were there. I saw you watching, but I pretended not to notice." His words hit me like a blow, and I felt my chest tighten as if someone were squeezing my heart. Embarrassment and worry flooded me all at once, and chaotic thoughts swirled in my mind. He had known. He had seen me, and yet he had said nothing until now. Living a lie, our clandestine affair cast a long shadow over our lives. Deep down, we both acknowledged the absurdity of it all. Our relationship defied logic, morality, and the very foundation of our family. It was a path leading to inevitable heartbreak and destruction, yet we couldn't resist the magnetic pull that drew us together. Like moths irresistibly drawn to a dangerous flame, we sought solace in each other's arms, willfully ignoring the warnings and the potentially devastating consequences. For Lucas, the thrill of the forbidden seemed to amplify the intensity of our connection. In those stolen moments, I pushed aside the guilt and fear of discovery, surrendering to the intoxicating power of our forbidden desires. But secrets, like wounds, fester in the darkness. Deep down, I knew our time was limited. The truth, like a ticking time bomb, threatened to explode, shattering the fragile facade we had so carefully constructed. Lucas and I navigated our days, trapped in a constant battle between our hearts and our minds. Every encounter was a delicate dance of conflicting emotions, stolen glances charged with unspoken longing, accidental touches that sent shivers down our spines. The inner turmoil weighed heavily on me, yet I couldn't break free from the intoxicating spell of our forbidden love. We shared moments that were both exhilarating and guilt-ridden, moments etched in our memories with a mixture of pleasure and shame. Then one afternoon, the precarious balance of our secret world nearly crumbled. Victor returned home unexpectedly, his arrival throwing us into a panic. The sound of his car pulling into the driveway, the key turning in the lock, sent a wave of fear washing over me. Lucas and I barely had time to disentangle ourselves before Victor walked through the door. His face bore the marks of a long day, but his eyes darted between us, suspicion clouding his gaze. He remained silent, but the unspoken question hung heavy in the air. The tension in the room was palpable, a tightrope stretched to its breaking point. That close call served as a stark reminder of the fragility of our situation. I knew we couldn't continue down this path. The constant fear, the guilt, the strain of maintaining our deception, it was all taking its toll. I had to confront the reality of our situation, no matter how painful. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the porch, I called Lucas outside. His eyes, reflecting the fading light, held a mixture of emotions: hope, sadness, and a vulnerability that tore at my heart. "We can't do this anymore, Lucas," I whispered, my voice trembling with the effort of holding back tears. "I love you, but only as a mother. That's the only way it can ever be. This will only destroy us both." Lucas stood silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the ground. A wave of sadness washed over his face, his shoulders slumping as if releasing a burden he had carried for far too long. "I understand," he finally replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Our forbidden romance ended that night, as quietly as it had begun. But the pain of that goodbye lingered, a scar etched deep within our souls. Victor remained oblivious to the truth, and I knew it was for the best. I poured my energy into my family, focusing on healing the wounds within me and rebuilding the trust and love that had been so carelessly damaged. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was the only way to reclaim the life I had almost lost. The memory of our affair remained, a haunting reminder of the destructive power of forbidden desires and the importance of cherishing the love that truly matters. Lucas decided to leave home for a while, seeking balance and the chance to start a new chapter in his life. his departure left me with a profound understanding of myself and the mistakes I had made. I realized that loneliness and the longing for affection can sometimes lead people to make choices they never thought they would. But from those moments of weakness, I learned valuable lessons that changed me forever. The greatest lesson was the importance of honesty and the courage to confront your feelings. To protect what truly matters, you sometimes have to let go of what shouldn't be held onto. The end of my story with Lucas was filled with regret and deep reflection, but it also marked the beginning of healing, a step toward moving forward. After everything I've been through, I feel compelled to share some reflections for anyone who might find themselves in a similar place. These lessons aren't easy, but they are necessary. 1. Know yourself and face loneliness. There was a time when I felt trapped in loneliness, overwhelmed by emptiness. Instead of looking for comfort in the wrong places, I realized I needed to confront those emotions head-on. I asked myself why I felt that way and began addressing the root cause rather than seeking temporary distractions. Facing yourself is never easy, but it's the only way to find true peace. 2. Maintain boundaries and respect your self-worth. When emotions run high, it's crucial to establish boundaries in relationships. I've learned that respecting myself and others is essential to avoiding mistakes that could lead to regret. Boundaries aren't just about rules, they're about preserving the dignity and integrity of everyone involved. 3. Communication and connection are key. If you're feeling lonely in a relationship, start by initiating an honest conversation. Sometimes, simply opening up can clear misunderstandings and strengthen bonds. Connection thrives on communication, and silence only deepens the divide. 4. Forgive yourself and learn to grow. The hardest part of making mistakes is facing the regret that follows. I've learned that beating yourself up only prolongs the pain. Forgiving yourself is the first step toward healing and moving forward. Mistakes don't define you. They're an opportunity to grow. 5. Cherish the relationships that truly matter. In the end, nothing is more precious than the love and connection shared with those who genuinely care about you. Don't let fleeting emotions or temporary confusion cause you to lose what truly matters. If you're experiencing confusion, conflict, or disorientation within yourself, take a moment to pause and reflect. Face your emotions with honesty and choose the path that aligns with your values and well-being. I've learned that true strength